All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Innovative Benefits webinar. My name is Becky Reich. I'm the Director of Quality Youth Worker Wellbeing. Thank you for joining us today. We are grateful for the chance to connect as a community of Indiana youth workers, all committed to meeting the needs of our youth in Indiana. For those not familiar, with IYI, our mission is to improve the lives of all Indiana children by strengthening and connecting the people, organizations, and communities that are focused on kids and youth. The Youth Worker Wellbeing Project is a collaborative statewide effort to improve the lives of Indiana youth workers so they can more effectively work with youth. The success of this project is built on the foundation of collaboration, and we are so grateful for our partners at Indiana After School Network, IARCA Institute for Excellence, Indiana Youth Services Association, and Marion County Commission on Youth. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few pointers that will help you engage with today's webinar. For any technical support issues, you can use the chat feature to send us a message and we'll assist you. You can also use this feature to engage with our awesome presenter or your peers throughout the presentation as well. We encourage you to use the question and answer feature to drop questions, and you can even upvote the ones that you want to have addressed. At the end of today's presentation, as follow-up email, you will get a link to an evaluation. Please take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts. If you don't receive that evaluation email, you can check junk. It may have been directed there. Once you do complete that evaluation, you'll be redirected to your certificate of participation. Like many of IYI's webinars, our session today will be posted on our website if you'd like to revisit it later or share with others. We are excited to continue our series with our awesome partners from Purple Ink. This series is designated for youth serving organization leaders, human resource professionals, to learn about the latest trends in employee benefits so you can gain tools that will help boost employee retention, satisfaction, and overall well-being. Today, we have the pleasure of having Jody Curtis, founder and owner of Purple Ink. With over 30 years of experience in HR and a background in finance, she's known for her joy-powered approach and helping people and organizations focus on strengths and find more joy in their work. I will go ahead and hand it over to Jody.
All right. Thanks, Becky. So our topic for today is to talk about learning paths for employee development. And I guess the title didn't scare you because it looks like we have 40 people on today, but I think I was afraid it might. So kudos to you for signing up. In that, I think sometimes when people think about learning paths, they think, oh, those are for really large organizations or for organizations that have big learning and development teams. And I know many of you don't have that. So don't worry, we're going to talk about a wide range of low cost to no cost types of learning that you can offer to maybe some more in-depth ones for some of the larger organizations as well. But we'll definitely include options for every level and every type of organization. I will tell you, you'll see a train vibe going on with these slides for today. And the reason why I have the trains is because my daughter lives in Europe. And so when I'm over there, she lives in Sweden, we ride the trains a lot, which I love. And at every train stop that comes up, the speaker on the train always, or it's a recorded speaker that says, please mind the gap. And what he's talking about is the gap between the train and the train platform that you step off onto, or you're stepping onto the train from the platform. And it's maybe just a couple of inches. But someone could easily trip and fall in that gap. And it always makes me think about learning gaps, or what is our gap what's the gap for us in our position and our careers and our organizations in thinking about a gap is here's where we are and here's where we want to be. Maybe that's this big or maybe that's this big, right? But what do we need to do to get to the next level? By the way, learning paths or getting to the next level doesn't have to mean a new title or a new promotion, right? Maybe you're already at the top of your organization chart or so it's not about taking you to a promotion. It might be. I hope it does. And I hope you can think about future development for people on your team so that they do have a path to grow on. But I think for all of us, no matter where we are, we can think about how do I want to grow? How do I want to grow my knowledge? How do I want to grow my skill sets? How do I want to grow my experiences? Whatever that might be for you. So don't narrow yourself to thinking about this has to be something formal and also that it has to be a promotion because it doesn't. Um, but I personally, I grew up in the world of public accounting. I spent my first 21 years of my career working for two different public accounting firms. I spent 9 years as an auditor, then about 6 years in an operations role that really straddled accounting and HR, and then 6 years as an HR director, but all for public accounting firms during that time. Now, I was really spoiled in terms of having learning paths in my career. We had pretty distinct growth paths for most people in our organization that did include title changes. And we also had the majority of the people in those firms were CPAs who had requirements to have continuing education. Um, and I am a CPA and I've kept up my CPA all these years and now I'm certified in HR. So now I have more requirements to meet for those HR certifications. But for me, that's been a good thing because I love to learn and I love to increase my knowledge anyway. So I think for me, it might be more natural to do it anyway. But it does rather force me to make sure that I'm taking advantage of opportunities to learn and grow and develop myself as well. Likely in most of your organizations, you don't have that. You might have some people in the organization that need continuing credit and continuing education credits for their particular skill set or profession. But when you have a whole firm of them, that means you're going to have lots of opportunities to learn. And we created many of those internally. So I do come from a background of having a very structured program, but I love to talk to organizations about things that they can do that don't have to be overly structured or don't have to be um, uh, for all that certification credits. So, and I want to start right off by sharing this training assessment with you. If you want to take a picture or scan this QR code and look at it later, we have developed internally at Purple Ink a learning and development assessment that can help you. It's free, by the way. And we'd love to get your feedback for two purposes here. Number one, we're doing research on what are organizations doing with learning and development. So we want to start providing information back to our clients and the world of people that follow us about what our organizations doing. I just saw, by the way, someone put in the chat, could we get the assessment link instead of a QR code? And yes, I can get that to you. Becky, can you help me remember that? Um, and so we're doing it for research, but we're also doing it for you as an opportunity to look and answer some of these questions. It'll take you probably about 5 minutes to complete it. So it's super short. And think about, what are we doing? What are we providing to our people in terms of their learning and development paths? So you might have some surprises in there of things that you are already doing when you really think about it, or you might have a lot of opportunity to grow there. We're not judging you, we're just asking for the data. So let's talk more specifically now about learning paths. What are they? Why might you even want them? Who needs them? And how do we determine the gaps in them about where people are and where they need to be, right? So think, are they on the platform needing to get on the train? And how do you go about getting there to that next level of skill sets or growth? And then number 5, how might you create them? So we'll explore all of those today as we go along. So number 1 is, what are they? Well, if you think about having a learning and development strategy, that's a plan that is used by organizations to improve their employees' knowledge, skills, and abilities through training or other educational initiatives. For some people, for example, that might even be that possibly you have education reimbursement plans, right? Maybe you're offering education to your people. I know Becky was just telling me IYI is running a 2-day, what did you call it again, Becky? That you
We're currently facilitating today. I'm on site for our Emerging Leaders of Color Fellowship, which is a 6-month leadership cohort.
Yes, so they have a leadership cohort that people are going through, which is an example of helping people learn and grow. That one is, has a particular focus to it, but there might be many other opportunities to do that as well. At my organization, which only has 12 people, we don't have a formal written out learning path for all of our people, but we do encourage them to get their certification in HR for those people that makes sense for. We support that path for them. And then we provide free education credits to, I don't know if you've attended any of our Purple Ink webinars, but we offer those every month on people-focused topics that all of you are welcome to attend as well. And they offer SHRM credits for those that support our own employees as well as our credits. So that's, or as well as our clients. So that's an example of maybe encouraging your people, if appropriate for their roles, to attend some of our webinars or other free webinars that might be offered by some of your partners or vendors. So they can be free, just to make that point. It's not always about spending money. But a learning path is a, it's a strategic tool to aid employees, but ultimately the organization, right? We want to help our people be better so that our organization can be better. So some people think of it as it's a benefit to their employees. Well, of course it is. And that's amazing. And that's great for retention and to help them with opportunities to learn and grow. But selfishly, for our organizations, we want our people to do that so that they'll stay with us and that our entire organizations will be stronger because they're developing skill sets, competencies, methodologies, getting knowledge for higher performance or for higher level skills. By the way, you can feel free to ask questions as I go along here. I'm sort of watching the chat, or, Becky can shout out if she sees one in there, or if you have a question and want to unmute yourself, you can do that as well too. But let's talk about some things too, that what is a learning plan and what is not a learning plan. So a learning plan is collaborative, meaning that you're talking with your team members, with your organizations. Maybe it's a select few, maybe some of these are one-on-one conversations, or maybe these are conversations that are held at an organization-wide level to think about what you need and what opportunities are out there. They're actionable, right? It's not just saying in an annual performance review, I want you to learn more this year. I want you to gain skills. I want you to be stronger. It's really about thinking about what specific types of actions do we need to take. Now, that doesn't mean we always know those answers. For example, if you have performance reviews in June and set goals for that next fiscal year, that you're going to know all the answers. But you might have some general goals that say, I'd like for you to get 10 hours of learning and development next year, or I'd like for you to watch 3 of Purple Inks webinars, or 4 of IYI's webinar series that they're doing for us. Or I'd like for our team to read a book. And I'm going to talk more about books as we go along, that maybe you can have a book club or a podcast club where you're asking people to listen to podcasts and talk about them as well too. So books we can get from the library, podcasts we can get free, and an app on our phone. So lots of different options for that as well too. Learning plans can be standard, but ideally they're personalized. Now, depending on how large your organization is, that might depend here. I can tell you for the 2 CPA firms I had, for example, that when I was, say, a staff auditor, all first year auditors had the same plan. All right. So it was pretty standard, or it was standard for first year auditors, but second year auditors had a different one. Now, we had 1,000 people, so we might have had, you know, 200 staff auditors. So 20% of the firm might have had the exact same learning plan. So they weren't in personalized one-on-one, but they were personalized for the level that we were at in the organization. Now, the higher up the food chain we got on the ladder, the more personalized that we became as we became more specialized in different industries. So I personally specialized in nonprofits and worked with a lot of nonprofits. So my education became more focused on nonprofit skills, but also, of course, had some basic auditing skills as well. So for some of you, you might have social workers or nurses or accountants or marketing people, right? Those different groups might look very differently depending on their skill sets. But you also might decide as an organization that we're going to offer harassment-free workplaces to everyone in the organization this year. So there might be some standard things that just everyone in the organization attends. So they should be solution based. What are we striving for? What are we trying to get at? Do we have particular competencies as an organization that we're focused on for this year or for the next 3 to 5 years? Is it things like better customer service that might apply to everyone? Is it working on a new technology system that we have that we need everyone in the organization to be learning or to be focused on as well too? So it can be any number of things. Ideally, it's also alignable with our goals. And again, that might be goals of the organization as a whole, or it might be individual goals. And for some people, it might only be organization-wide goals that everyone is getting. And then maybe for particular roles or particular levels of people, like managers or leaders, that are able to attend more specific training for them as well. And certainly we want them to feel supported in that, right? Now, maybe that means you're paying for it. Maybe it doesn't mean you're paying for it. Maybe it is. Let's, as a leadership team, pick a couple of podcasts that we can listen to as a group or books or one-on-one asynchronous learning online modules. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But what a learning and development plan is focused on, again, on growing, on learning, on improving our skill sets. So it's not about a punishment. Like you have to do this because you're not good at this, right? Now, it might be we'd like for you to take this course because we've talked in your annual performance review about your ability to work on your communication skills or work on your conflict skills or work on team building skills. But that should be viewed as you're important to us. We want to keep you in our organization. So we want to help you and support you in being better at those things or in growing your skills to do it, not as, you're a failure and we're punishing you. It also should not just be a one-time conversation at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, but ongoing discussions about what the organization is looking for and what your opportunities are too. Now, I did say a learning plan can be standard, but ideally personalized, but it's not really a, a really good learning and development plan if it's totally cookie cutter either, right? If you haven't, and maybe you haven't been offering learning and development opportunities to your organization. So maybe your first year, you're going to start with something, for example, like harassment-free workplaces and help people understand what harassment is and is not. That might be a standard course for everyone. But if ideally they would get to be more personalized at some level. It's also not a replacement for coaching. Sometimes coaching is a better answer, and sometimes coaching is the learning and development plan opportunity. And sometimes training is, and sometimes a combination of those things is the right answer. So sometimes when we have very skill-based things we need to learn, a training can suffice for that. Sometimes we need that one-on-one coaching for people to understand where they are and, where they want to be. It's also not guaranteed success, right? It doesn't mean everyone of your people will thrive once they have a learning and development plan, right? We have to make sure we have the right plan. We have to make sure that our organization is committed to that support of whatever that support looks like. And that the individual is supportive of it and is interested in it and is buying into it. You know, you might have people who just say, I just want to come and do my job and go home, and I want to do it well, and I don't want to learn anymore. Well, I think that's up to you to decide, is that okay? Is that okay for your organization? Is that okay for some of your roles, for people to be able to say, I'm not going to learn and grow. And sometimes that is okay, and sometimes it's okay for a while, and sometimes it's never okay. So, um, it's also not only, you may have many people, you might be one of these people where you thrive on learning and developing and growing, and you've created your own plan, which is awesome that you're looking to do it. But we don't want it to be only employee driven, and we don't want it to be only organizationally driven. We want it to be this collaboration of, now the employee might seek out additional opportunities to learn and grow on their own, or the organization might have plans that don't seem overly individualized for each person, but somewhere hopefully we can find a middle ground in there that works for both of us. And they're also not necessarily set in stone. We might have a lot of ideas. We might have a lot of goals for the next year of what we want to accomplish, but we may need to make sure the budget is aligned with that, right? Or if we find in our first quarter of the year that we're behind budget, we might have to put a temporary halt on some of these plans or make changes along the way. Or maybe we can add things along the way as we exceed our budgets and the organization is doing well. But of course, I would hope when they are developed that they're achievable things and not getting employees excited about things that may never happen, and having to take them away from people as well too. But why might you even want them? Some of you might be thinking, hey, we've been in business for 50 years and we've never had a learning plan. So why do we need one now? Well, I have some ideas for you. I think it's about individual growth. It's about organizational growth. It's about skill enhancement. It's about talent attraction and retention. It's about new hire orientation. And it's about session planning as well too. So let's dig into a couple of these, and a few of these I've mentioned already, right? But individually, we may again have individuals who are, definitely coming in with a path in mind of where they want to get to or what they want to learn. But we might also see those superstars in our organization that we want to make sure we can keep them challenged and keep providing opportunities for them to learn and grow. And sometimes, again, as some more examples that aren't necessarily costing you out of pocket funds, right? Maybe it's a um, cross functional team, or that different people from different roles are selected to work on a project for the organization or for a strategic planning goal for the organization that gives them an opportunity to maybe step out of their regular day-to-day role to work with this team a few hours a week or a few days a week or whatever that might be. But it could just be 1 hour a week right? To get their insight, to brainstorm with them on different opportunities in the organization, or to shadow people and other roles in the organization. We talked too about the organizational growth, right? As we grow our people, hopefully they can help us to grow our organization in whatever ways that particular um, position is able. So if you have an HR person or you are the HR person and you have an opportunity to learn new skills within HR, or it's your development managers or leaders who have an opportunity to learn new skill sets around raising money or creating events or whatever that may be. One of the number one things that the younger generations in our workforce are looking for is opportunities to grow. And again, I wouldn't be scared off by that term growth for some of you who have really small organizations and say, we're going to hire an accountant and we don't have 5 levels of accounting people that they're going to grow from a staff accountant up to a senior accountant, up to a controller, up to a CFO, up to the president of the organization. They're not necessarily looking for that. They're looking for ways to be better accountants or better business people or better solution oriented people. So lots of different skills, for example, around time management or delegation or conflict management, right? All those things don't have to necessarily prepare them for another level, just to be a better skilled person in our role. Um, but that those types of things, if your organization is talking about them and can address those concerns from that, I say the younger generations. I think it's important for people at all levels, for people of all ages, for people of all skill sets to have this opportunity. I just think the younger generations have voiced it more. They have specifically responded to surveys and research tools saying opportunities and personal growth are important to me. And they've answered that more frequently than people of older generations. So I think that has to be an important aspect of something that we can offer our employees. So performance, even their own personal performance improvement, right? That can help address gaps for employees. And, if you've said, I'd really like to see you work on your communication skills in the next year. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean their writing skills? Does that mean their presentation skills? Does that mean the emails they send out? Whatever it is, be clear on what kind of communication skills that is and how might you ask them to write a blog for your organization and then to have someone to review it and give them feedback. And the best way for people to learn better writing skills is to have them write more often, right? Even though that might seem like punishment at times, it actually is a growth opportunity for them to do that. And then succession planning, thinking about, who, if you have a director, a CFO, or the leader of a particular team or growth that may be getting close to retirement, or you've heard they might be seeking other opportunities. Who do you have in line to fill those positions? It's something, succession planning sometimes is viewed as something that you do every 5 years, as opposed to really thinking about every single day. What process do we have in place to be able to support the next man up, if you will, as the Colts always used to say, who's our next man up? Of course, they mean male or females, but who will we have in place and how can we get them ready for those next opportunities as well, too? Okay. So now I'd like for you to just take a personal moment of reflection. I'll ask if anybody wants to share. So if you feel comfortable with this, I'd love to see you type some of your answers in the chat. But think about you as an individual and whatever your role might be. Think about what do you do best? What are you best at? And I like to start with that question because so many times we're asked or we're told what we don't do best, right? Our annual review might say, as I've been using as an example, really needs to work on their communication skills, right? Well, yes, we all have things that we can work on, right? We all have things that we can be better at. Um, but what is something that we do really well, and how can we keep doing it? So, for example, let's say you're really good with writing skills. Your emails are excellent. Your donors, your customers, your clients, whoever, when you're communicating with them, you're particularly eloquent or use good words when verbalizing with them or in writing with them well too. Don't forget that those are opportunities for you to continue to do more of what you do best. So it doesn't mean, oh, Becky's awesome at communication skills. So by golly, let's don't give her any opportunities to increase her communication skills. She's already good at it. And that's, I think, so many times where we fail. We want to train people on their weaknesses and not their strengths. When if we sent someone who's excellent at communication skills to further their communication skills, they're probably going to be super excited about it and say, I love this. I'm really good and I want to be even better at it. But if we tell someone they're terrible at communication skills, and so we're going to sign them up for 15 communication skills classes, they're probably going to be totally defeated, right? At thinking, oh, this is something painful for me and I'm not good at it. And now I have to take 15 classes that are going to be horrible, right? I'm not suggesting that we can't raise the bar on things that we're not so good at. But let's start with the question, what are your strengths? And then what are your desired skills? Maybe to be better at your strengths and maybe to improve some of those things you're not so good at. So all right, so I have some awesome people who kicked us off here and put some of those things in the chat about what they're doing well. Missy is doing well working with individuals. Tina is an awesome liaison between programs. Missy is also good at collecting data, planning, and writing documents. Tina is also good at time management. Fabi is good with building human connection while still keeping structure and accountability. Becky is her strength is being relational and building community. But something she desired to do more of is incorporating more data. I love it. Those are all awesome. And keep going here. Yeah, keep going on what those are. And if you think about some of those things that people have listed, right? It's not so for Missy, for example, who's really good at working with individuals. Do we need to send Missy to a class on working with individuals? Well, maybe that would help her be even better at it. but maybe it's about giving Missy an opportunity to work with more individuals one-on-one, right? Or in a group setting. So our mind doesn't have to go in when I say training and development, that many times makes us think about signing them up for a course. It does not have to be a course. Maybe you have a really good book recommendation for Missy on how to be even better, how to be superb or excellent at working with other individuals. Maybe it's a mentor for Missy. Maybe there's someone already in your organization who you just think is a total rock star. And it doesn't matter if Missy reports to that person or not. Have Missy have asked this person if they would be a mentor with Missy to, whatever that might mean, meet with her once a week or once a month or observe her and working with individuals and give her feedback on that, right? So I just can't stress enough that it doesn't have to be about spending money because I know many of you are on tight budgets. Now, I'm not suggesting that our time is free either, right? For the person we asked to mentor, Missy, we may be asking them to give up an hour a week or an hour a month or an hour a quarter of doing their job to help grow Missy, right? That's not free. We may not be paying out any dollars differently, but we are losing an hour of that person's time. So we need to recognize that and be careful when we set goals like we want you to meet with Missy for 1 hour every day. Well, that might be a bit overwhelming for both of them, right? It might be a lot of time spent there. So anyway, seeing lots more additions here, increasing my supervision skills, boundary setting for Fabi. I need to work on that one too. So, and yes, Becky says applying a skill is still learning. So giving people more opportunities to apply that skill can be the answer. Encouraging others to remain receptive to learning as much as possible. Yes, yes, yes. And they can learn again too outside of work, right? I think it's important that we as individuals think about, I can't just sit back and wait for my company to provide something to me. If I want to learn and grow, what am I doing? So I mentioned before that the first two places I worked out of college were very invested and spent a lot of money and a lot of time on developing my skill sets for them. And I was very appreciative of that. But I was also a reader. We didn't have podcasts back in those days, but now I'm an avid podcast listener. And I listen to personal podcasts on things I want to learn about. I listen to news podcasts and I listen to podcasts about HR too. So I can't depend on my employer to do all of that for me. I have to make that commitment. Or maybe my employer will pay for me to get, as I mentioned, Purple Ink pays for our team members to get an HR certification. We pay for it, but they have to study for it, right? So we can't do that part for them. Okay, so training question number 3, who needs them? Who needs a learning and development plan? Well, I would say everybody, right? I would love for all of us to take back that we want to help grow and teach every single employee. But maybe that's too much to tackle right now, right? Maybe we're not there yet. Again, maybe you haven't been doing anything at all. So, oops, jumped ahead too quick. So, thinking about creating one for all employees might be too much to tackle right now. Well, my best advice for you is to start with your managers. Now, you might have thought I was going to say your leaders, and I love it if you can do that too, but generally, it's the managers who have the greatest impact on the most number of people in your organizations. I know you don't all have pyramids, but if you do, and your leaders are at the top and your managers are in the middle, it's the managers that the bulk of the people at the bottom of the pyramid are looking to. So start with them. They can have the greatest impact on developing the most number of people. And maybe that's one person, and maybe that's five people, and maybe that's 50 people. But what can you do? Remember that we can also learn from our peers. So maybe it's putting those managers together for an hour a month to do some peer learning from each other or some peer sharing. Maybe only one manager gets to go to a webinar or a seminar or a conference, but in return for sending that one manager, you ask them to come back and report to the entire organization, the management team, whoever that makes sense for in your organization, so that lots of people learn from the one person who got the direct investment, right? So we don't always have to say we're going to send all managers, and maybe that means we send one manager this year, and next year a different manager needs to go, or two people need to go or get to go this year, and two people get to go next year, type of thing too. So think everyone, but if that's not feasible, start with the managers. And then how do we determine the gaps? How do we determine what people need? Well, my first advice is to ask them, right? And sometimes we don't always know. I'm not saying that's the be all end all. That, well, I say, oh, well, I want to learn more about team building. And you might be thinking I need to learn more about managing my time, right? So we need to have those conversations again jointly to figure out. But look back at my last few performance reviews. I know some of you might not have performance reviews either. But think about what conversations have you had? What observations have you made about people? Look at things that maybe are in the company goals or the company's strategic plan. I spoke for an organization a couple weeks ago who had one of their strategic plan goals for the year was to focus on accountability and all of the different ways they could hold people accountable, including asking people to hold themselves accountable, right? And to hold their team members accountable, not just wait for the leader to hold them accountable. So, anyway, it can come from goals or the strategic plan, maybe key performance indicators, right? Maybe you're looking at decreasing turnover or increasing retention or decreasing lost days of work or lost days of production or downtime in your IT department, whatever. What values do you have in this organization, and that people understand what that means? And maybe that, by the way, is an internal discussion. Maybe someone internally talks about what the values of the organizations mean to them. Do you have core competencies? Do you have those performance evaluations? Do you see some common themes in the performance development, in the performance evaluation? Do you have workforce development plans? Do you have any kind of internal learning and development capabilities? Now, I realize some of you might have all of these. Some of you might have none of these, I would suggest you all have performance evaluations, whether they're written or not. You know who's performing and who's not performing, right? And what areas do you see people being strong in that you could help them be stronger? Or what areas do you see them struggling in that you might be able to raise the bar on some of those as well, too? I'd be remiss if earlier I was talking about podcasts and Tina put in the chat that Radical Candor is a great podcast. Radical Candor is also a phenomenal book that is good for everyone to learn about. And I guarantee you, you can check that out at the library. If you're not looking to spend money, go to your library and check out Radical Candor. And thank you, Tina, for the suggestions. One of the things too, which could be a whole nother webinar on, is thinking about setting clear expectations for each person in each role, right? We can do that better if we have good job descriptions, if we do monitor performance, again, whether that's verbally, whether that's observationally, or whether that's written performance reviews. And we can communicate with people what our expectations are. If people, most people will strive to meet expectations of a role if they know what they are. But so many times we assume that people know what they are and they're not meeting them. Be very clear on what they are first. Let people know what they are and give them the opportunity. And even that can be as simple as saying, I need you here at 8 o'clock in the morning. I need you here. I don't care if it's 8 o'clock. Maybe it's 7 o'clock. Maybe it's 10 o'clock. But being clear on when do you need people at work, and then are they doing that? Or are they late every day in your mind because you think they should be there at 8 o'clock and they've been working there for years and nobody's ever mentioned to them that it's a problem that they're coming in at 8:15. So they don't have an expectation that they need to be there at 8 o'clock. So you can also do assessments, 360-degree feedback, surveys, polls, performance reviews, check-ins, right? There's a multitude of different ways where you can help determine what these gaps are. You can ask people to do personal development plans, right? Kind of a self-evaluation. And in essence, I gave you a bit of a self-evaluation a minute ago and said, what are your strengths and what are your desired skill sets, right? Well, just ask everyone in your organization what that is. First of all, do a check for, does that make sense right now, right? If you have a brand new hire who wants to be the executive director, I'd ask them more questions, right? Do they want to be the executive director in 10 years or in 10 days, right? And what might be feasible for that and what might not be. Um, but highlight their goals and their strengths, their short and long-term goals. Identify what roadblocks that might be, right? For me in public accounting, we had to pass the CPA exam before we got promoted to the next level, which was a senior accountant. That was very clear for us across 1,000 people in the firm. And some people established that as a goal to pass the CPA exam, and some people didn't, right? And so some people got promoted and some people didn't. It didn't necessarily mean they got fired. They just knew they were not going to get to that next level without meeting that targeted goal. So, what are the roadblocks? What's preventing people from meeting their goals and plans? What budgets, if any, do you have? And again, it doesn't have to be about dollars. It can be about time. It can be about investment in people, in mentorships, um, and internal coaching as well. So another question for you, and we're getting close to the end here, but you can think about what gaps and skills are needed for you in your current or next role. What are areas you need more training on? What are things blocking you from that? And what are options to gain these skills that make the most sense for you? And some of those might be investing in yourself as well. And again, not just waiting for the organization to do that for you. So, how can you create them? I'm probably going to have to skim through this pretty quickly. But some people, think about what are we doing now and what's missing? How might we be able to teach these skills internally? What is our budget? What commitment do we have from leadership? They might not be buying into all these things. Maybe there's some group or Becky mentioned IYI as a cohort group today that is learning together. Maybe you can, um, maybe it's too expensive for you to do as a group individually, but if you bound together with some other partners in the IYI network, that you could do it as a group. We can help with those too. Is it asynchronous learning? There's lots of different ways you can learn online right now. Is it book clubs, formal education, certifications? I've really talked about all of these as well earlier. Thinking about creating a master template for everyone. And again, I mentioned they don't have to all be written, but if you get to that point where you can write them down, start with a standard template and then individualize as much as possible, thinking about all of these different things you could do. A quick example, this was a goal of mine a couple years ago to get a certification in hardiness. I wanted to do it because I wanted to offer that to clients. I found out how much it costs to get it. I found out where I could get it. I set a goal of doing it by September 30th of that year. And then I also found a book and a podcast on that topic as well too that I could support with that. This might be something you look at for a group of people. Maybe you don't have $5,000 a person for training, but if you had 25 people who needed this training, that might be $399 a person. Does that make sense for you or not? Right? Or maybe it's a goal to improve people's meeting skills, and you only have a budget of $250. Well, let's go buy some books for people and have a monthly book club for people. You don't have to read a whole book every month. Maybe you just have a couple of chapters and different people take the lead on a chapter month by month. This was a little case study I went through with people on how someone who gets a learning plan and someone who doesn't, and how they might feel about it. But overall, and you'll get this in the recording, and Becky's going to send that out to you so you can check in on those slides when you get that. But I always like for people to think, what actions will you take based on what you learned today? What's one thing you can do differently? Maybe it's for yourself, maybe it's for your team, maybe it's for your organization. And I'll wrap up with a couple of ideas on that. I mentioned that we have a podcast called the Joy Powered Workspace Podcast, which is really geared toward people leaders of any kind. We also have 5 different books that we've written on thinking about joy powered workspaces and joy powered teams and organizations. You can get them on Amazon or on our website. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out with our blogs and videos of different topics that you can follow if you're interested in. And here's that QR code is the same one I put up earlier. So it is 1 o'clock, but if you want to stay on for a minute, I will pull up that learning assessment and put it in the chat. If you need to go, we'll send it to you with the recording. And here's if some of you were here to get the SHRM credit, we've got that for you today as well too. And these are all the different ways you can reach me if interested. And all right, thank you so much for joining us today, Becky. I don't know if you have any final thoughts. I'm still pulling up the QR assessment, so you can
Perfect.
hang on if you want, or it's okay if you
Yeah,
like.
no, great, Jody. While you do that, I will wrap us up. Folks, stay on if you have just a couple more minutes. That would be amazing. We do have, I just want to make sure you are tapped into all things youth worker well-being that is offered because all of our resources and services are at no cost, which we love a budget relieving, no cost program or service. So we do have high level access to telemedicine, virtual mental health services. We have grant opportunities. Note those grant opportunities can include some capacity building for your organization or your staff. So earmark that to pay attention to. We have webinars just like this one and some others for you to continue again, skill development and connecting to resources. And as Jody mentioned, I'm literally today at our Emerging Leaders of Color Fellowship, which is a skill development cohort that we run as well. Again, if you're not already connected to telemedicine and virtual mental health, this is a no cost service. I'm not going to walk through the process, but it is a great service. 15,000 youth workers enrolled currently. It's one of our favorite services from org leaders because it's a great benefit to offer. So if your HR folks are on here, right, folks are using it as a, benefit offering, right? We do have a couple more benefits webinars coming up. So those are on here as well. You can scan the QR code. We also record these, right? So you can go back and check out the recordings. I put that link on this slide as well, so you can find it after this presentation. We also have a board engagement webinar series going on. We are wrapping it up next month, but again, recordings available, so you can always catch right back up for those as needed. If you wouldn't mind taking just like 3 minutes for me and doing our feedback survey, we want to know what you thought about today's presentation and the impact it's going to make on your staff and organization. So if you wouldn't mind grabbing a phone and grabbing that QR code and giving us feedback, we really value that. It drives the decisions that we make to serve you and provide the right resources. If you aren't already connected with your outreach manager, these are the on the ground folks out in your particular counties serving you through youth worker cafes and fuel ups and other opportunities. They know all the things IYI that are happening. So make sure you tap in if you haven't. Again, this will be readily available for you. And then if you need any other information, you have other questions, I will drop my email in the chat as well. But you can reach out to the General Youth Worker Wellbeing email at any time or visit youthworkerwellbeing.org. I see that, let's see, wrap up. I see Jody dropped the link. Thank you for that. Not seeing any other pieces. Yes, you will have the slides and you will have the recording as follow-up to this session. I think that wraps us up. So thank you, thank you, Jody, so much for all of the amazing
You're welcome.
information. So many great pieces. I'm a learning junkie, so this was one of my favorite ones, just thinking about all of those pieces. Um, Again, you'll get the follow-up. Please do the evaluation if you didn't already do it. And on behalf of our team here at IYI and the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project, thank you so much for showing up today and every day for Indiana Youth. Don't forget, you're not alone. Reach out to the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project anytime. While you're here for Indiana Youth, we are here for you. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much and have an amazing day.
Thank you.